Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Godzilla King of the Monsters reminds us that really the most fun thing about a monster movie is always the monsters, or kaiju, titans, whatever you want to call them. Certainly more fun than anything smaller than a building in this movie, and even more so than its predecessors, Godzilla in 2014 and Kong Skull Island. King of the Monsters really embraced that Toho tradition with a ton of references and Easter eggs that were really easy to overlook from hundreds of feet in the air. So let us go back through this movie and break down everything that you might have missed, and spoiler warning in case you haven't seen it yet. Okay, the film opens by introducing us to the Russell family, the mother, Dr. Emma Russell, Vera Farmiga, her ex-husband, Mark, Coach Taylor, Kyle Chandler, their daughter, Madison, Stranger Things, Millie Bobby Brown, Millie Bobby B, survivors of Godzilla's past destruction, but still recovering from the loss of their son. Mark and Emma are an animal behavior specialist and a paleobiologist, who in this movie get wrapped up in a wider plot to resurrect ancient giant monsters and play God with nature, who ultimately come together to save the kid. Very similar to the scientist couple at the heart of Jurassic Park. Actually, the final shot of Godzilla roaring as King of the Monsters is certainly parallel to the famous T-Rex roar at the end of Jurassic Park, with the "When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth" banner. And speaking of Spielberg references, the kaiju communication technology that Emma and Mark have created is called Orca, the name of the boat in Jaws. Orca is named for the sonar function of the endangered whales that they were trying to save by leading them away from the shore, which is actually what Godzilla will later do with the various kaiju in the epilogue of the movie, leading them from the shorelines around the world, this time to protect endangered humans. Early in the movie, a news report shows protesters with signs like "Kill the Titans" and "Destroy all monsters," the second of which is a reference to the title of the 1968 Toho film, in which Godzilla and all the kaiju team up to defeat King Ghidorah. Emma and Madison are revealed to be at Monarch Outpost 61 in China's Yunnan rainforest. This is where the larvae form of MOTHRA has been discovered. MOTHRA is the next famous kaiju from the Toho films, a benevolent, gentle giant who often teams up with Godzilla to fight other threats, such as the main villain of this movie, King Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, an evil kaiju with extraterrestrial origins, who breathes lightning and with a wingspan so massive it can create electrical storms. There's also RODAN, based on the Pteranodon, who's kind of a rogue, switching allegiances between whomever is alpha. Now, the Godzilla movies were originally made to reflect the Japanese fear of destruction during the nuclear age, with Godzilla being a metaphor for the Americans following the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Ghidorah was interpreted as the growing threat from China, and Rodan as the threat from the Soviet Union. Also, all the outpost numbers in this movie are references to the release years of those Toho films. Here in China, Outpost 61 refers to 1961 when Mothra came out. There's also 55, the release of Godzilla Raids Again, 67, Son of Godzilla, 75, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and 91, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Millie Bobby B's Stranger Things co-star Randy Havens plays Dr. Tim Mancini, another monarch scientist observing Mothra, whose code name is revealed as MOTHRA, the original Japanese name of the character. Mothra freaks out against the soldiers, but she restrains violence, tossing them around, pinning them to surfaces with webbing, but not eating them, crushing them, or impaling them. Already we're seeing how she's a gentle giant. And when Emma calms her with the Orca, the music that plays is a leitmotif by composer Bear McCreary to the classic Mothra theme music. Actually comes back throughout the movie, along with, of course, the classic Godzilla theme music. Emma and Madison join eco-terrorist Alan Jonah, played by Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. And in Washington, D.C., we meet more of this film's expansive cast. Dr. Sam Coleman, Thomas Middleditch, he's a monarch liaison. Of course, Ken Watanabe returns as Dr. Serizawa from the 2014 film, along with David Strathairn as Admiral Stenz, and Sally Hawkins as Dr. Graham. The scientists find Mark and take him to Castle Bravo. And the tablet that Mark swipes through shows all the other kaiju in the movie. We first see codenamed Scylla, perhaps a nod to the Scylla from Greek mythology. In this movie, it's a giant arachnid-like kaiju that rises from oil fields in Arizona. And this spider-like kaiju is based on the Spaiga or Kumonga from the Toho films. Ugh. There's also Behemoth with huge tusks, which breaks loose from a monarch containment facility in Brazil later on in the movie. And then, of course, there's Kong on Skull Island. He gets referenced several times throughout this film. And then Methuselah, who later rises from the hills of Germany. A forest grows on his back. And then there's various others. In Loch Ness, Scotland, there's codenamed Leviathan, a nod to Nessie. In Morocco, there's Baphomet, which could be named after the goat-headed demonic entity worshipped by cults and associated with the Knights of Templar. And in Sudan, there's Mokele Mbembe, which is an elephant brontosaurus-type creature whose name means one who stops the flow of rivers. In Cambodia, there's Typhon, a nod to the Greek myth snake monster. In South America, there's Quetzalcoatl, Quetzalcoatl, based on the feathered serpent deity of Mesoamerican culture. In North America, there's Tiamat, another mythological sea dragon, and elsewhere on screens throughout this movie, there's Abaddon, Sargon, and Bunyip. Inside Castle Bravo, there's actually a frozen head of one of the Mutos from the 2014 film that can be seen. Probably the female, since his head was blasted off in that movie. But also in this movie, there's a new third female that shows up if you're looking closely. We also meet some more human characters, Jackson Barnes of the G-Team, played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., and Bradley Whitford as Dr. Rick Stanton, a wisecracking conspiracy theorist who drinks a lot. The director confirmed that Rick is based on Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty, who of course is also a sarcastic, alcoholic, conspiracy-prone scientist. Zhang Ziyi plays Dr. Eileen Chen, revealed later to be a twin with her sister Ling Chen, also played by the same actress. We find out that these twins are from 3 generations of twins, which is of course an amazing nod to the MOTHRA fairy priestesses, the Shobjin from the Toho films. Jonah and Emma head to Outpost 32 in Antarctica, where Monster Zero, GHIDORAH, is frozen in ice. Now, GHIDORAH's extraterrestrial origin and this outpost number could be a nod to John Carpenter's The Thing, in which an evil extraterrestrial monster was frozen in Antarctic ice near Outpost 31 in that movie. The Monarch team follows them on their flying command center, the Argo, which is a nod to Jason and the Argonauts of Greek myth, the crew who faced many of these mythological Greek monsters that inspired the kaiju that I mentioned earlier. Jonah's team resurrects GHIDORAH from the ice, and the ensuing battle kills Dr. Graham. And the Monarch team realizes that Emma was in cahoots with Jonah, sharing his Thanos did nothing wrong style eco-terrorist mindset that worldwide genocide is the only way to stop overpopulation and climate change. They head to Isla de Mara in Mexico, where RODAN is awakening from a volcano. The air battle is pretty incredible. We see a pilot ejecting directly into RODAN's mouth, favorite shot of the film. And Admiral Stenz fires an oxygen destroyer at the Bataline kaiju, which kills all the living creatures in the region, but doesn't kill GHIDORAH, of course. The oxygen destroyer was also the name of the deadly device created by Dr. Daisuke Serizawa to kill Godzilla in the very first movie of the franchise in 1954. MOTHRA rises from the waterfall, seen by the other Dr. Chin, and Joe Morton, who's playing Dr. Houston Brooks, an older version of Corey Hawkins' character from Kong Skull Island. They find out that Godzilla has returned deep into the ocean to rejuvenate with radiation in the ruins of a submerged ancient city, which isn't spelled out explicitly, but this is most likely the ruins of Atlantis. We don't get to see it because it gets nuked, unfortunately, but it's pretty cool. In the background of these ruins, there's a statue of the demon Pazuzu from the EXORCIST films. There's also a giant rib cage near the entrance of this air pocket, which could be a nod to another ancient Godzilla from the past that might have died while fighting GHIDORAH, which is kind of similar to the past Godzilla corpse that was laid with Muto eggs. Serizawa sacrifices himself by carrying the warhead personally into the radioactive hotspot, which is a nod to his namesake sacrifice in the original 1954 film. Daisuke Serizawa sacrificed himself to kill Godzilla, but here, Ishiro Serizawa sacrifices himself to save Godzilla. And right before he says in Japanese, "Goodbye, old friend," he checks his pocket watch and it reads 8:15. Now 8:15 is the precise minute that the atomic bomb exploded over Hiroshima on the morning of August 6, 1945. There are actually famous examples of pocket watches being found frozen in time at the moment of the blast. So with his sacrifice to awaken Godzilla, Serizawa once again reminds us of the historical symbolism of the Godzilla character. By having to resurrect Godzilla and drag him back into the fight, this movie paints Godzilla with the personality of the last samurai archetype. The ancient lone warrior, content in retirement and isolation, but his high moral character forces him back into the world to set things right. The showdown arrives in Boston, with Madison using the stolen orca to stop the kaiju destruction, but attracting King Ghidorah to Fenway Park. A supercharged Godzilla arrives to fight Ghidorah, but Godzilla's extreme radiation has turned him into a living nuclear meltdown. It's actually similar to the main plot point of the 1995 film Godzilla vs. DESTOROYAH, which, unlike the other films being a metaphor for nuclear annihilation, this is more of a metaphor of the fear of leaks at nuclear plants. Like Chernobyl, which, by the way, watch that HBO miniseries, it's amazing, or the disaster that Japan would later experience at Fukushima. Mothra arrives to assist Godzilla with a screech that's actually a modified version of her iconic original sound from the Toho series. And if you notice, her wings have eye spots that were actually designed to resemble Godzilla's eyes, so that the two kaiju are visually connected to reflect their alliance. This battle is spectacular. Ghidorah bites power cables to supercharge with electricity. Godzilla blasts it with atomic breath. and after getting dropped to the earth, Mothra heals Godzilla with her wings and then sacrifices herself to block Ghidorah's lightning attack. So just as the Queen of Monsters sacrifices herself, the human maternal figure sacrifices herself, with Emma taking the Orca device and luring Ghidorah away from the others. After going nuclear, Godzilla breaks apart Ghidorah's body, ends up swallowing its head and releasing a little lightning burp. Amazing. The other kaiju arrive and grovel at Godzilla's feet as the sun rises on a new reign. And in the credits of the film, we learn how King of the Monsters will set up the next movie, Godzilla vs. Kong, coming in 2020. There are news headlines describing Godzilla leading the kaiju away from the mainland towards Skull Island, perhaps as a kind of exile away from the humans to protect people. But that could set up a power struggle between Godzilla and Kong. Now, Kong is a lot smaller than Godzilla last time we saw Kong, but that was also decades ago, so who knows how large he is now. Or with this movie's post-credit scene featuring Alan Jonah finding a severed Ghidorah head, maybe the resurrection of Ghidorah, perhaps in Mecha King Ghidorah form, could be a threat that Kong and Godzilla team up against. There's also a headline describing a mysterious egg being discovered, most likely setting up the resurrection of Mothra in the next film. And one last detail that you might have caught that I thought was really fun. The scrolling credits listed Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah in the cast of the movie playing themselves. Comment down below with your favorite moment from this movie, and follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at EA Voss. Subscribe to New Rockstars. Thank you for joining me, and hey, to all the critics who are really going after this film, just remember that many of us grew up seeing a version of Godzilla on the big screen that somehow tiptoed across the Brooklyn Bridge and squeezed inside Madison Square Garden to do what? Yeah, lay eggs. The male Godzilla laying eggs. Yeah, we've come a long way.